Welcome to this episode of Two Guys on a Porch. Taste test number 2 today. We're going to find out if we make as big a fool of ourselves this time as we did last time. It won't be hard, Jason.
No, we can definitely make fools of ourselves. Welcome back. Welcome to Two Guys on the Porch. I'm Jason. This is Bradford. As always, we have my hunting dog, Kimber, with us. Today, we're again on a porch, this time a friend's porch. Last episode, we were on a friend's porch, but I was rude and didn't introduce where we were. David and Susan Drummond, very good friends, were kind enough to allow us to sit on their porch when it's very cold outside. You can probably still see the snow outside. For Tennessee boys, it's cold outside, so we're on a warm porch today.
You're forgiven for that rudeness that you displayed. I think we would categorize that a little more graciously.
The Drummonds have a lot of grace toward us.
Well, and we know you well enough to know that is not a distinctive of your personality by any stretch. But we are very grateful to be here today. And I'm nervous because I'm looking at 6 whiskeys behind us and only 4 glasses. So it makes the odds for us to pick these out diminished.
It does, and we're taking a test. I mean, usually we're just drinking bourbon, smoking cigars.
Okay, I'm out. Taking a test, I'm out.
Having a good time. There's no pressure. Now the pressure is on, right? We've got to actually show our prowess and our tasting skills. I'm not sure there's much prowess there, so we'll see.
Well, and I think they've done this in every imaginable order to make sure we don't screw it up like we did in the first one. We were A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. These glasses have letters on them, or at least I was told they were, and I don't see any. Oh, there's an A.
Yep.
So we have some idea of what we're drinking, and if we drink too much and get them mixed up, we'll know where they are.
Yeah, so again, thank you for being a long-time listener, watcher, but we are not experts. We're just 2 guys on a porch who enjoy drinking whiskeys. In past episodes, it's been scotches, typically bourbons, but we're 2 guys on a porch enjoying each other's company, enjoying life, and tasting this. And that's the whole idea, is that we're not experts. Well, there's a lot of people out there who know more than us, but we know what we like and we know what we don't like. The tasting test is not necessarily to put ourselves to the skills, but it comes back to saying what we really like and what we really don't like. And maybe our perceptions were somehow biased by the label, right? If you have a Pappy 23-year-old that you're tasting, you're supposed to like that, right? Who in the world doesn't like 23-year-old Pappy? But if it's blinded, maybe it's not quite as good as we realize.
Although we don't have Pappy 23 in this test.
We don't have 23, but we have 15, which is pretty darn good. We also have some of our favorites from previous episodes. You can go back and look at those episodes. Again, go back, like, subscribe, comment. Taste them yourself. This is a community atmosphere. This is about you tasting it, telling us what you think, and commenting back to us, and that kind of guides what we taste. It's a retro look at some of our favorites that we've tasted in the past. No particular order. We have 15-year-old Pappy Van Winkle, Voyage by Wild Turkey, one of my personal favorites, CYPB by Weller, Antique 107 by Weller, Frank August, and Jack Daniel's Bonded. That some of our viewers out there really commented on Jack Daniel's Bonded before. They really liked that. That was a surprise to some people out there.
Yeah, and price point on these, the Jack Daniel's Bonded would represent the low end of the range at about $40 a bottle. And the Pappy 15, the high end of the range, that bottle 15 is probably $2,500.
Closer to $3,000. But it's a secondary market, so it's
right.
Whatever you can find. If you can find it, how much are they going to scalp you for?
Yeah, and then everything else in between. I think the Frank August is about $80. The Wild Turkey Voyage is $350. The 107 by Weller, $150 to $200 probably on the secondary market.
Yeah, I would say more $200 to $300, but same thing. It's hard to find, so it's on the secondary market, it's just whatever they want to charge you, and so it's CYPB, Crafter Perfect Bourbon. Again, it was something made up by Weller, by their audience, to figure out what the people like to taste, and so it's a unique approach to bourbon, but hard to find. It's going to cost more. I don't remember what I paid for it.
$700 to $800.
Yeah,
range.
exactly right. And so, so very good bourbons, all of them. But which ones can we pick out? Which ones can we recognize? And which one do we really like?
Well, and we're going to try to weave in our topic today as well. And that is, how do you pick who your friends are going to be after they divorce? So I say that lightheartedly because we're going to be picking our whiskeys. But having been through that,
Yeah. So obviously, I picked you, Bradford, because your ex-wife Linda is not here on the show with me. So I picked you. So I made a good choice there.
well, that is true. But you picked me long ago because, and not to sound too morose, but she's no longer with us. She passed away almost 8 years ago now. Over 8 years ago now, as a matter of fact. So, but that is a challenge. Look, I've been divorced. I've had friends who've been divorced. That is a challenge, and you're not really picking friends. I think some people do that, but it is a matter of how does it become that friends are chosen post-divorce, and that's a challenging thing to navigate on both sides of that. And so we're going to mix that challenge in and talk a little bit about that in the midst of tasting these whiskeys and trying to, we're going to pick out which one we like the best. We're going to rank them, and then we're going to try to name them. And I think every time we feel like, hey, we kind of know what we're doing. To your point about not being experts, this will prove definitively we're not.
Yes, it will definitively prove that we're not. I think, divorce, unfortunately, is very common nowadays. And so you're placed in a position, unwelcome position as a friend of somebody who's getting divorced, that you are kind of in that position of like, it's kind of just awkward to kind of hang out with both anymore. You used to go out with that couple as a couple, but they're no longer a couple, so that's no longer an option. So what's the etiquette? How do you handle that? It's just awkward.
Yeah, I had, when I got divorced, there were a couple of guy friends of mine who were very close to my wife and I appreciate that. They didn't have to because we weren't married, but they said, hey, would you mind if I just, took Linda to lunch and spent time with her? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. And so, they were gracious in doing that, and they maintained a friendship over the years as a result. I think a lot of that, one, time makes a huge difference. The further you get away from divorce, becomes less and less awkward. And I think, too, the attitude that each of the former spouses have toward another dictates how easily that separation becomes in engaging with the other. My wife gets along famously with her ex-husband, which I appreciate, I respect. We spend Thanksgiving together. With his family, because that's easier on the children. And as a result, I think it just makes things easier on our friends because we're not speaking ill of the other.
Well, that's somewhat unique because there's not necessarily a friendly divorce. I mean, they're getting divorced for a reason. And it's usually a lot of barbs, and each spouse is trying to inflict as much pain on the other as possible during the divorce process. It just seems to be sine qua non for a divorce process of not necessarily getting what you want, but inflict as much pain as you can. Pull pin, throw a grenade.
Yeah, and I think in my situation, I took cues very much from my ex-wife. If she had been that, pull the pin and throw a grenade, I probably would have responded in kind. But because she was fairly civil through the entire ordeal, during and post, I think it made us easier to move on, and I think as a result it made it much easier on our friends to move on as well. So having said that, we'll come back to it. Let's start tasting and see how badly we mess this up.
Yeah.
So I would suggest first we taste all four and then rank them and then start the guessing game.
Sure, sounds good. I think this will be harder than picking sides in your friend's divorce. My nature is to look at this more objectively, look at color, look at the viscosity, how much legs it has on it. But these are all very similar bourbons, similar aging, some deviations. Obviously, 15-year-old Pappy is aged the longest here. And so the color doesn't give you a lot of clues. The alcohol content is pretty similar. So I think I'm going to step out on a limb. I think how you're going to be best able to distinguish this is not the nose, not the mid-palate, but the finish. I think that's where a quality bourbon really distinguishes itself.
So I've tasted the A.
Yep.
And I almost have a guess right off the bat as to what
too.
it is. Do you have a guess?
I do. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, never in doubt.
Right.
This is Frank August.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Absolutely, it's Frank August.
So this is Frank August. I like Frank August. It doesn't have much of a nose. The mid-palate is the best part of it. It has a good feel in the mouth. It has a very light and watery finish. No burn to it all, no tannic taste to it. It goes down nicely. Personally, I don't like that light, watery finish. I want something that stays with me. The finish is such that it leaves me lacking.
Yes.
It's not to say it's bad bourbon. It's actually just the opposite. I think it's very good bourbon. It's, what do you like better, chocolate or vanilla? Both are good ice creams, but I personally, don't like this as my drink. But it's phenomenal bourbon.
Yeah, I agree. I would say, because I do enjoy Frank August. I have a bottle at home that I'll drink regularly. The first thing that hits me is the sweetness on the front end, the very beginning. I agree with everything you're saying from a finish standpoint. I think one thing that makes it really kind of cool in terms of its character and profile is I do taste a little bit of dark chocolate on the back end, which I think is kind of cool in a bourbon. Yeah. And it's unusual to find that. So I do think it's got a great flavor, good flavor profile. If we're wrong, we're going to look like idiots describing things that don't exist. But I'm very confident this is Frank August.
Yeah. So remarkably, it's one of the few things we've agreed on. So I guess we're going down together or rising together.
Right.
But that's the neat thing of two guys on a porch. Again, this whole show is based upon buddies hanging out in the past, and we come from different walks of life, and we certainly don't necessarily agree on everything, but we agree to be friends. And so that's the neat thing about this show is that we each bring our perspectives to it.
So I've moved on to taste this second one, and I don't pick up a ton on the nose. I mean, and it could be location, temperature of the bourbon. And, I have seen examples where they recommend you hold your hand over the glass to bring out the flavors. And I've also seen where they recommend you pour about a dime size drop in the palm of your hand and then rub it around and smell your hands. I'm not going to do that, but that's one thing that's recommended to pick up flavor notes.
Kind of along those lines. The other thing is you're supposed to open your mouth while you smell it, and that presumably helps you with. But you just look like an idiot doing that, right?
And I still don't pick up anything on the nose. I mean, I detect some sweetness, but beyond that, I don't detect much. Now the flavor, I think, is much more robust and full relative to the first one we tasted. I was going to say the Frank August, but we don't know that that's Frank August. That's just our guess.
We don't. This does not have the cinnamon finish of Pappy. It's not that.
And I don't taste any charcoal, so I'm going to eliminate bond.
I agree with that. Was exactly what I was about to say next.
Now, this is really good. So I think it's a wheated, so I'm going to go, it's one of the three Buffalo Trace products. It's either Pappy 15, Weller CYPB, or the 107. And I'm tending toward the CYPB. Now, we don't have to guess now. I think we're just going to rank them. But
I haven't come to that conclusion that CYPB, but it's definitely good. It's definitely up there.
You think it's a wheated one?
Yes, it is.
All right. So we're going to move to the third one. This looks like a much darker amber color than those first two we tried. I could be wrong. It could just be the lighting, but I think it's a darker color.
What are you doing, Kimber? You want to be petted again?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
She's a whore
so-
for a hug.
Yeah, Wild Rose Kennels, they're going to be mad at me for non-discriminate petting. That's I'm forgetting what Wild Rose rule that is, but they have rules, right? And non-discriminate petting is
Meaning I wouldn't be allowed to pet her.
no, it's you're not supposed to pet your dog without being a reward. Otherwise, you get this behavior of laying
Oh,
your head.
pet me. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what she's wanting a little attention here. But when you have a dog as lovable as this, who can refrain from petting her? So, Mike Stewart, Tom Smith at Wild Rose. I'm sorry, I'm doing a little too much petting here.
All right, so that third one is really good. Has a ton of character, flavor profile. It's just very unique. Full mouthfeel, really good finish.
Yeah.
And I'm leaning toward calling this the Voyage, but I don't know for sure. I don't detect the wheat that I would on the other, so I'm going to eliminate that. Now, it's possible that this is bonded.
No, it's not got that charred barrel taste to it. It's smooth finish, but I'm not tasting the char in there.
Yeah, so I'm leaning toward Voyage on that one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So this was
Wait,
one,
are we going to... All right, so you didn't come down on the second one as
No, I have not.
CYPB like I did, but the first and third, we're in agreement?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's Voyage there. So and this is harder than the divorced friends and everything.
So I think you and I were better friends than Emily and Linda were. So I think that...
Emily being my wife for viewers out there.
But yeah, I think that made that decision process easier. I do think the struggle is, and I've got some friends who, if the spouse was really good friends with my first wife and I was good friends with the husband, therein lies the challenge. Not so much if one spouse is better friends with the other and you're kind of friends with the other spouse because of yours.
Yeah, I think that's one big factor. The other factor is in our society or culture, I should say, not society. There's always who did the wrong thing. There's always blame.
Yes.
You got to, whatever it is, you got to assign blame. I'm not sure how we got there, but no matter what happens in life, there's a blame for it. It can't just be it happened. It's got to be somebody's fault. It can't be, a act of God type thing. It's somebody's fault. In divorce, it's typically the husband doing something wrong, but not necessarily the case. And so it's who do you know most between the couple, but then also whose fault is it? The husband had an affair or whatever.
I think, when I started dating my current wife, one of the things that impressed me the most is she had forgiven her husband. He was more at fault. But because she possessed a great deal of self-awareness, she didn't put all of that on her husband. She took blame for the fact that, look, you don't get here alone.
Yeah.
And she was willing to own her own stuff with regard to the failure of the marriage. And that's what it is. I mean, I guess to some degree that's a judgmental statement because some people just say, well, we grew apart and it was time to move on. And that may be a bit of a cultural phenomena because I do believe in that commitment from a life perspective. So there's got to be some cause that brings you to divorce instead of, well, we don't love each other anymore. Because that's much more of an action than a feeling, or it should be.
So kind of going back to my favorite movie, The Unforgiven, I like that movie because unlike your classic Western, there is no good guy, bad guy. Classic Western, this is obviously the protagonist, this is the antagonist. It's very much a virtual tale. In divorce and in real life, there's not so much a bad guy, good guy. It's just there's plenty of blame to go around typically in a divorce. I don't know. How much would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah. There's plenty of blame to go around. The challenge is, in order to move forward, you have to get rid of the shame. And I think it goes back to the balance of owning what you've done and not living in the shame of whatever you've done. And that's true for both sides. I think shame is the killer. And that's true in any aspect of your life moving forward. It just can become so debilitating because those are the voices in your head that tell you lies about yourself, or they take a truth and take them to an extreme that is beyond healthy. By the way, we've not mentioned what we're smoking today.
Oh, yes, please.
These are Oliva Series 5, Roman numeral represented as V, but they are Oliva Series 5. They make great cigars. I've had a number of Oliva representatives, and they're reasonably priced, $12 to $15 generally. This is a medium-bodied cigar. This is the Melanio, which is their most popular expression. And yeah, I find this to be very pleasant. The company was started in 1995 and has become more and more popular for the reasons that we cited earlier. It's easily accessible from a price point standpoint, and it's a good cigar for the money. Great value.
Yeah, this is I would say this is a great entry cigar. This is not an offensive cigar. It comes on mild. It stays mild. Very pleasant.
Would you agree, though, it's medium-bodied? You say mild, but not a mild cigar.
Yeah, it's correct. It's got the flavor to it, but it's the old cat shit in your mouth test, right? So, that's, it comes down to simplistic things. And so it does not, it has the flavor, but not the...
Don't get any ideas, Kimber.
Yeah. It doesn't have the stringent, pucker factor to you. It's just smooth.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, so did we taste the third one? We did, because I determined that was Voyage.
Yeah.
So we're going to move to D, the fourth offering, and let's see if our folks have fooled us.
As I reflect, our past episodes have been Scotch-style whiskeys, and I think that perhaps it's just the Tennessee boy in me speaking, but I find bourbons just more flavor, more character. I enjoy the smoky peat taste of a Scotch, but I really enjoy the flavor, the vanilla, the caramel in a bourbon.
Yeah, now where I respect Scotch drinkers who prefer that over bourbon is their reasoning is usually, I don't want all that sweetness. And that corn brings that out. The charred barrels bring that out. That is bourbon. And so I respect the Scotch drinkers because it is cleaner, it's fresher. You don't have the sweetness. You do get more of a salt profile, and in a lot of cases you do have some peat infusion, whether it's light or heavy. So I get that, because it's really a matter of preference. But I'm with you. I think I prefer bourbon.
Yeah, and so
or Tennessee whiskey.
Exactly. So the Lincoln County process. So we've been over this before, but again, bourbon is at least 51% corn, as opposed to Scotch. It's barley, and then bourbon can be you can add wheat in there or rye, and then it's the whole new charred barrels. Scotch is just, again, as you and we pointed out before, it's just simply barley, yeast, and water. And then they dry it out with peat, dry out the barley with peat, and that's what puts that smoky and or dirt taste to it. So bourbon has more ingredients, and I don't know, like I said, maybe just the Tennessee boy in me, it brings more flavor out.
Now, I'm a little bit confounded by this fourth one in terms of being able to pick out what it is. It's got a great nose. It's got the best nose of the four we've tried. And I would say on the nose, oh my gosh, that's bourbon. However, we do have a Tennessee whiskey represented. That's not to say it's part of this tasting profile, but yeah, it's got the best nose of the four. What do you think in that regard?
Yeah, so I approach multiple choice tests by elimination process. This is not it doesn't have the finish of a Pappy. It does taste. I do taste that char in there. I would put Jack Daniel's Bonded up there. It's very good. It's got a finish that has the classic vanilla and caramel in there, but it has the char in there. I would lean toward Jack Daniel's Bonded. I don't know. It could. I don't know. I'm second guessing myself. I remember it's been a while. I didn't cheat here. I didn't go back and taste these beforehand. As I recall, the Antique 107 really surprised me in the past.
Yes.
With a great finish. So that kind of makes me think, because I liked it so much before, it could be the 107.
That's my inclination, is that I don't think we're drinking any Pappies today.
Yeah.
I think, and then to rank them, I'm going to go B as my favorite, and then D, C, and A. And A last by a fairly wide margin. It's good. I think these other three are just big steps above. And I think you're right. I'm CYPB on the second. And that fourth one, I'm still a little bit confounded, but I'm going to go with the 107. And I'm going to stick with Voyage on that third one. I think it's the sweetest. I think B is probably my favorite. And I know when we did the Weller tasting, I said 107 was my favorite over the CYPB. But I might change my vote based on what we've done here today. Now, we may be proved to be wrong.
Yeah. I think the big lesson to be learned here is that when you're drinking these great bourbons, it's hard to distinguish, right? I mean, they're all very good. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to price and availability. Why would you go through the trouble?
And preference.
And yeah, well, there's preference, but we're having trouble distinguishing these. It's not like, okay, this is phenomenally better than this one. It comes down to price a lot.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to be shocked if the first one's not Frank August and the third one is not Voyage. That will surprise me. Now, the B and D, it took me a minute to figure out what came after C. B and D are a little more difficult for me to identify, but they also happen to be, I think, the best of what we have tasted.
I'm sorry, B and D being the best?
Yes.
All right. I've not ranked them yet.
Yeah, I'm going to go B, D, C, A. And
B,
C, I'm
D,
going to put
C,
on par with, I don't know, it's so hard. To me, it's a tie for third, or a tie for second. And then fourth would be Frank August. I think they're different enough that I would say we're drinking different things, and I wouldn't rank them together.
Wow, this is tough. Yeah,
Maybe we should just talk and drink a little more and
Yeah,
see where we land.
Yeah.
Now, have you ranked them?
No, I haven't. Well, I would put A as last because
So we're in agreement on that.
yeah, we're going to call that Frank August. I concur with that. And
What if we reveal that? Can we find that out, and then move on to the others? So if we are in agreement that A is the worst of the four, and it's Frank August.
Well, define worse. It's worse because it's just not a preference. It's not bad. It's just,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's see if we can eliminate that from.
So for those watching, these were poured by our assistant producer, Steve Dogg. I made that nickname up on the spot there. So, Steve Dogg, what is the A?
You guys have crushed it. That is Frank August.
Oh, wow.
From the start.
I feel relieved. Do you feel relieved? Boom.
We got one.
Yeah.
The over-under that our producers gave us was 2. We would
Yeah.
get 2 correct.
50%.
So we're 1. So we're halfway to the prediction. You said you thought we were going to get more than that. Now, you might get more than that, but I don't know that I will.
All right. So I'm going to go with the easier, what do I like best?
Yeah.
That's a better than identifying. It's just which one do you like?
Wow. These are so good. I just keep wanting to. We may have to pour more to keep tasting these.
Yeah, that would make it easier to see what bottle they pour from.
All right, I may have to go with that third one as my third choice. I think the second one is my second favorite.
I'm sorry,
And
what's number one favorite for you?
B, the second one we tasted, would be my number 1.
So I think, here again, I'm trying to take a logical approach. We know that's Frank August now. I don't think any of these are Pappy.
I agree. I do think that's weeded.
Yeah, and you said you thought B was Voyage?
No, I think the third one The C is Voyage.
Yeah. I really like that. So, and I agree with that.
And we know, because after one of our episodes, we sat around and finished a really good cigar and drank Frank August and Voyage together and very definitively determined that we liked Voyage better.
At the Standard Club. So
Yes.
go back and watch those several episodes,
Yes.
3 episodes. Thank you again to Josh Smith, Standard Club, for having us on their facilities. Great place. Check that out. Those episodes out. I'll go with that. Yeah. So I will concur that C is Voyage, and it is wonderful. It's the finish. It's
But is it your favorite of the remaining 3? Because I'm going with B as my favorite of these 4. And to me, it is probably CYPB. That's going to be my guess. Now, if I'm wrong and it's 107, great, because I know I love 107.
yeah.
I've got that at home.
That's
in my
exactly
cabinet.
where I'm going with it. That's B is 107.
Now I've got to taste it again because it's
Yeah.
it's a little hotter, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 107 proof. That's
Right.
hence the name.
Right. I'll concur with you on C is Voyage.
I don't think we have Pappy or Bonded. You think
This
it
is
is
bonded.
And which one? That's
D
the
is
fourth
Bonded.
One. D is Bonded. All right.
Sometimes right, sometimes wrong, never in
And
doubt.
see, I am in doubt, and that's unusual for me.
So Frank August,
That's so good.
107, Voyage, and Bonded. As far as my favorites, B, C, D, A.
Me too.
You enjoy B the best.
I
out of
enjoy B the best, and I think it's CYPB and not 107.
it. Okay.
And I think C is my second choice, and I think it's Voyage.
Yep.
And then D, the 107. So we both agreed that B was the best.
Yeah. So we're going down together, I guess.
Well, from a profile choice, now we named them differently because
Yeah.
our favorite, you said, was 107,
Yeah.
and I said was CYPB.
So Frank August was A, which was B.
Yeah, so we're thinking
So-
it's one
so-
of these two.
Yeah.
Let's see if we're right.
All right, and the winner is
Our favorite is...
CYPB.
Oh, I nailed it! I nailed
Boom,
it!
way to go, man. All right.
So I got 2.
He's 2 for 2. I'm 1 for 2. All right, and number 3.
We said was our second favorite, and it's Voyage.
Voyage, yeah. So what's number 3? So what? Oh! Oh! Wow. Oh,
That is hysterical.
Yes. We both thought 15-year-old Pappy was Voyage. Probably biased by our experience that we really like Voyage and we really like this, therefore it must be Voyage.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. It's interesting that we liked CYPB better than Pappy 15.
Yeah. Wow. That can make some waves.
That's remarkable. Now, it's the same mash bill.
Yeah.
It is produced by the same distillery.
Yeah, same recipe, same makers.
Now, what CYPB is a combination of all of the Wellers in some variation to create your perfect bourbon based off feedback from consumers.
Oh.
So it's different than any of their other offerings.
All right, and so let's put it. So we think it's
So we're going to find out.
Bradford's 2 for 3. Jason's 1 for 3.
Bonded. Woo! I redeemed myself.
So
I'm 2 for 2. You're 2 for 2. Well, no, you did
we're
miss
2 for 4.
2. Excuse me. 2 for 4. Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of tastings. The bourbon is taking effect, and Kimber is sympathizing with me. Yes, she's telling me it's okay.
So let's recap this. So the first one was A. We agreed that was Frank August
Yeah.
and the least favorite of the ones we had, and
Yeah.
we got that. We both got that right.
Yeah.
The second one, I correctly picked as, and that's B. It was both of our favorite,
Yeah.
and I correctly said that was CYPB. You had missed that. You had mistaken it for something else.
107.
Right. The third one we both agreed was Voyage, and we picked that as our second favorite.
Yeah.
We both agreed on that. And we were both mistaken because it was Pappy 15 instead of Voyage.
Correct.
So we were both wrong. the third ranked and last tasted, I said was Antique 107 and was incorrect, and you correctly defined it as bonded. And
Jack Daniel's bonded, yeah.
Jack Daniel's bonded.
And the key, so one thing I did get
And
right,
I didn't detect the char on that, and that was the miss.
yeah, and that's the one thing I did get correct through this process is that it's the finish that's where it's the telling sign. For bourbons, at least for me, again, we're not experts, but for me,
Obviously.
it's not, obviously. We've proven that. It's not in the nose. It's not the mid-palate. It's the finish. And I think from that standpoint, the finish on that bonded is that charred, maybe the charcoal filtering of it, the Lincoln County process. That's where it really comes in. But I think for me is that it's the bonded is right up there with some heavy fighters.
Yeah, and I think we've tasted enough of it and often enough that we have identified that bonded as just a tremendous whiskey and tremendous value.
Yeah, yeah. So and from a, if you want to look at an investment standpoint, value, a value buy, it's the bonded. I mean, all the other ones will be more difficult to find, and when you find it, it's more expensive.
Yeah, so we said that was our third favorite. It's $40,
Yeah.
and it's closely behind CYPB, Pappy 15, and then Frank August behind that. That's just remarkable.
And what's surprising to me is the Pappy in that 15. I just didn't. Honestly, I didn't taste the cinnamon.
Well,
like
see,
that.
I did. That was the one thing I noted, but it was not forward enough. I detected a little more spice, and I almost said Pappy, and then dismissed it because the sweetness, the more roundedness tasted more like the Voyage, which we had more recently, and so that's what swayed me on that. And I just thought, no, Pappy's going to be better.
Yeah.
And
It's got the reputation. That's why I was speaking of is the reputation bias, right?
Yeah.
You buy it, so it's hard to find. It's more expensive, so it's that bias that it's got to be better because you paid more for it.
yeah, and I think if you're finding CYPB on a shelf, it's probably $250.
Oh, more than that.
No. I mean on a shelf, like at retail.
MSRP, yeah.
MSRP. It's probably $250. It's the most expensive Weller out there, but you don't find it for that. You're going to pay $800 for
Right.
it, or close to it. So yeah, if you're picking between that and Pappy 15, from our standpoint, we have said no. Get the CYPB. You'll be very happy.
Yeah. It goes back to divorce. You're kind of forced to make choices between.
We're not getting divorced over this, Jason.
No. Well,
From each other.
the good news is that friendship over bourbon and cigars binds us quite nicely. So we will continue to taste and enjoy cigars and bourbons together on a porch. Maybe our own porch, maybe a friend's porch like David and Sue and Drummond. Again, thank you for this wonderful porch. It's nice and warm. We're not wearing coats today. You're kind of bundled up.
Well, I mean, it's cool enough that this is very comfortable.
Yeah. And I've been very gracious, too. I haven't commented on your hat at all during this episode.
Well, that's because it looks good.
Yes,
I pull these off.
that is exactly right what it is.
To close out, the choosing friends after divorce thing, I think, one comment I made I think is really crucial is that the ex's respect for each other post-divorce has a huge impact, but just be gracious toward each other through that process. I had a good friend who got married to another good friend. I had grown up with both of them, and they got divorced. He just kind of went crazy and would admit that. And it was very hard to engage with him after. I didn't know how to handle it. I was young, a little bit immature. I talked to him one time. I had another friend who was just so graciously sensitive, and he just maintained a friendship to the point that he kind of came back in the group, and we've been able to rebuild. And as I said, time makes a huge difference. And I think just be gracious as you go through that process with your friends. Don't pick sides because you feel like you have to. And if you have picked a side, so to speak, don't let that take you away from being gracious toward their ex, whoever that may be.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and it goes back to there's no innocence here. There's plenty of blame to go around. We all have our faults. We all have our shortcomings. And so while there's always a coup de grace that maybe have instigated a divorce, it takes two to tango,
Right.
and ultimately divorce comes down to both being at fault. I don't know. I don't think there's a right party. I don't think there's a wrong party. We're all equally guilty and equally innocent in it. I think, again, you like both the spouses beforehand. You continue to like them. There's still the same people with all their imperfections and their good sides, positives as well. And you continue to love them and be friends with them. I mean, unfortunately, divorce is an ugly situation that causes you, because of social systems that you have to pick. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't try to pick. You continue to be friends and love them.
Yeah, because you don't want to get it wrong like we did.
Yeah.
So
I was 2 for 4. You were 2 for 4 as well.
yeah,
Wow. Well,
but we're experts.
Yeah, we're experts.
Hey, thank you guys for joining us.
Man, really love being on the porch with you guys. Like and subscribe. We need your help, because if we're going to keep on doing this, we need support. We need popularity. The game is what the game is. Please like and subscribe. Please look for us in future episodes. I'm looking forward. We still need to taste that very, very old Fitzgerald. Back in the day, you tasted that, and you said that was the favorite bourbon you've ever tasted.
It was an amazing experience. Yeah.
So we're going to taste that in the future. I think we're going to do some more blind tests, taste tests. So lots of good stuff to come. Like and subscribe. Meanwhile, take care. Talk to you soon.
Life is much better with friends, a drink, and cigar, and some two guys on a porch swag.
Let us know what your drink and cigar of choice is at twoguysonaporch.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get some Two Guys on a Porch swag